Okay, students, so let's take a look at our geometry test part two study guide. If you will go with me to number one on your study guide, you will see this. It says Domino is building a flower box for her yard. The outline of the box is shown in the diagram. If she wants to cover the box with burlap, how much burlap does she need to buy? Okay, so this is going to be a surface area question. So if you look at this net, this is the net of a rectangular prism. That's correct. Now, what we notice about this particular rectangular prism is there are four rectangles that are the same size, and there are two squares that are actually the same size. So all we need to do is find the area of each one of the squares and each one of the rectangles, and we're going to add those together. But before we do that, let's just remind ourselves what the formulas are to find the area of a rectangle and to find the area of a square. All right, so as we were told in class, we know that for a square, so for the square, the area is going to be A equals S times S, so side times side. For a rectangle, remember we know that a rectangle, the area is going to be I don't know why I put the equal sign, but don't worry about it. The area is going to be base times height. Okay, so let's figure out what our dimensions are. If we look at that first rectangle, we see 3 feet here. And then we look down here, we see 1 foot over there. So that means that if this is 1 foot, that means this side here is also 1 foot, right? Because a square has all equal sides. So if that is 1 foot, then that means this also needs to be 1 foot. So therefore, the area of this one is going to be 3 times 1, which equals what? 3. And if all the rectangles are the same, then I can go ahead and just go straight down and write 3 here, and 3 there because the area is 3. Now, when I'm thinking about the area of this square, we said the area equals side times side. And if it's 1 foot, that means it's 1 foot all around. So therefore, for the square, it's going to be 1 times 1, which is what? 1. So therefore, this is 1, and this one is also 1. So now all we have to do is add it all up to get the surface area. So I have two squares with an area of 1. So that's 1 plus 1 plus, now we have four rectangles with an area of 3. So that's plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Now, we're going to simplify this by combining all of them together. I like to do it simply by saying, okay, 1 plus 1 is 2. So I have 2 plus, and I know that I have four threes, and 4 times 3 is 12, right? So I'm going to write 12, and 2 plus 12 will give you 14. Now, what is the unit? The unit is feet. I'm sorry. So it's going to be 14 feet squared, or you can say 14 square feet. So that is the answer here. She will need 14 square feet of burlap. All right, excellent job on that one. So let's move down to number 3. Number 3, check this figure out. It says in the figure, you see a net of a triangular prism where each unit on the coordinate plane represents 5 feet. If a can of spray paint covers 25 square feet, how many cans of spray paint are needed to paint the outside of the prism blue? All right, now let's take a look at this particular net that we have here. When you look at the net, you can see that there's a triangle here and there's a triangle there. And then you see a big rectangle. So what we're going to do is we're going to just break this shape apart and find the area of those different shapes that we have. So to me, I know that it's easier for me to just make one big rectangle. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take one big rectangle and break it apart. Now, I can see that there are two different triangles. Now, if I was to slice those triangles in half like this right here, I will see that in each box there are four equivalent triangles. And if I was to slide, if I wanted to, if I could, I could slide this piece and put it here and take this piece and put it there. And now I have a square. So now I can just find the area of the square and the rectangle and add them together. Or if that doesn't work for you, then you can find the area of the triangles and still do the same thing. But it will save you time if you just see that as a square and find the area of the square itself. Okay. So anyway, Now, before we do anything, we need to go back into the paragraph and identify some important pieces. Okay? So, one of the important pieces that's there, it says each unit on the coordinate plane represents 5 feet. Okay? Now, for my folk that don't understand what a unit is, if you look at this point here that I'm making and this point here, from here to there, that's a unit. Okay? So that means from there to there, that will cover 5 feet because that's what we're saying is 5 feet. Okay? Now, the next part that's important says a can of spray paint covers 25 square feet. So we're going to circle that as well. Now, the question I'm going to underline, and the question says, how many cans of spray paints are needed? That's the main question to paint the outside of the prism blue. So let's go back to the problem up here and let's take a look at it. So from here to here, that's 2 units. And since it's 2 units and each unit represents 5 feet, that means this is going to be 10. That's worth 10 feet. Okay. And if I'm coming down to the next one, right here to the side, or the height of it is 3 units long. 3 times 5 is 15. So therefore, it's going to be 15 units. Now, I'm going to find the area of the rectangle, which is area equals base times height. Now, it doesn't really matter which one you consider to be your base or your height. It doesn't matter because you're multiplying and it's going to be the same thing. But I'm just going to make 10 be my base. So 10 times and 15 is my height. And we know that 10 times 15 is going to give us 150. Okay? But wait a second, because we are not done. So now that we have our area of our rectangle, we need to now figure out the area of, I'm going to show you both ways. It doesn't matter. You can do it as a square if you want, and you can do it as a triangle. But if we do it as a square, we know that 1 unit is worth 5, right? So since the square is 5 all around, so that would be area equals side times side, which is area equals 5 times 5, which is what? 25. Yes, so therefore it will be 25 if we did it with the square. Now, if you want to do this with the triangles, then this is what you would do. Let's take a look at the other triangle. I'm going to change the color a little bit so that we can see it a little bit better. But if I was to do that with the square, with the triangles, it's the same thing. I know that the height is what? Worth about 5. So the height is worth 5. So it'll be area equals base times height divided by 2, right? And the base will be 5 times the height, which is also what? 5, okay? Because if you look at it, if you look at the triangle, this direction would be the height and this direction would be the base, but they both are equal to 5. So now if I do 5 times 5, I'm going to get 25, right? And if I divide 25 by 2, we all know that 25 divided by 2 is going to be 12.5. But guess what? I have 2 triangles. So therefore, I'm going to have to multiply it by 2 to get what? 25 again. Because we know that 12.5 times 2 is equal to what? You're right. It's going to be equal to 25. So I'm going to be back where I started. Okay? Now, here's what I need to do. I found out the area of the rectangle. I found out the area of the triangles or the squares. Now, all I need to do is add them together. Now, be careful because if you did it both ways, you need to remember that you only need to focus on either the triangle and the rectangles or the rectangle and the square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my area of my rectangle, 150 plus area of the square together, and I'm going to have 175. Now, we are not done because that's the total surface area. Now we're going to go back to our problem. And it says, now, if a can of spray paint covers 25 square feet, how many cans of spray paint are needed to paint the outside of the prism blue? Well, the entire square footage is 175, right? And we know that 1 can is worth 25. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take 175 and I'm going to divide it by 25. And when I do that, I'm going to get an answer of what? What do you think I'm going to get? That's correct. We're going to get 7 cans. So now we have 7 cans of spray paint. Okay? And you can write it in complete sentences to make us proud if you want. Very good. Okay, we're going to move on to the next problem, which is number 3. And it says, using the figure below, how many 1/4 inch cubes would it take to fill the rectangular prism? This one is a little more challenging, but it's very fun, and you should be able to get it done. Okay. So first of all, let's think about 1/4. When we think about 1/4, how many 1/4s does it take to fit into 2.5? Well, let's do it this way. If I have 1/4 and I added it 4 times, that's going to give me 1 whole. Okay. I need to add 1/4 4 times to get 1 whole. So I'm going to circle it. So therefore, it takes 4 1/4s to get 1 whole. But right here, I need to get 2.5, right? So I'm going to add 1/4 a few more times to get another whole. So how many wholes do I mean how many 1/4s do I have now? I have 8, and I have 2 wholes. Now I need a 1/2. How am I going to get 1/2? Well, if you look at the diagram right here, you can clearly see that it's going to take 2 1/4 to get 1/2. So I'm just going to do 1/4 plus 1/4. And therefore, I'm going to have now 2 1/2, because 2 2/4 will be simplified to, that's right, 2 1/2. So it's the same thing. Now, that means how many 1/4s fits there? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So it takes 10 1/4s to get 2.5. Okay. How many 1/4s does it take to get 1 whole? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it takes 4. Now, how many would it take to get 3 3/4? Well, right now we have 1. Right now we have 2. To get a 3, I need to add 2 more 1/4s here. Okay. Now I have 3, and I need 3 more, right? So 1/4 here, 1/4 here, and 1/4 here. And therefore, now I can go back and count them all up again. So that's 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's 15 1/4 inches and 3 3/4. So they want to know how many 1/4 inch cubes would it take to fill this rectangular prism? Well, I'm just going to take these numbers, 10, and I'm going to multiply it by 15, and I'm going to multiply it by 4. Okay, and I'll give you a minute to take out your pencils to do this. Pardon the interruption, teachers. Miss Clark. Okay, I'm going to do 10 times 15 times 4, and that's going to give us 600. So it will take 600 1/4 inch cubes to fit inside this rectangular prism. All right. Now, the next one on number 4, it wants you to find the volume. Well, to find the volume is very simple. What we're going to do is multiply the length times width times the height. But remember, with fractions, you need to convert them. You can either convert them to a decimal, or you can change them to an improper fraction. I'm just going to change to improper fraction and multiply. So 2.5, let's do that. So 2.5 will become 2 times 2, which is 4, plus 1 is 5. So that's 5/2. And then you have 1. We're going to make that 1/1. So times 1/1. And then you have 3 3/4. We're going to convert that again by doing 4 times 3, which is 12, plus 3 is 15. So you get 15/4. So now we got 15/4, and we're going to multiply directly across. Now we know 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 times 15 is going to be 75. And then we know that 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 4 is 8. So you get 75/8, right? Now, that's just like having 75 people in a class and trying to break them off into groups of 8. So you would just divide to see how many groups of 8 you can create. Well, how many times can 8 go into 75? We know that 9 times 8 is 72. So we're going to multiply, subtract, and we're left with 3 people. So that means we're going to have 9 people, 9 groups of 8 people with 3 left. So remember, there's only 3 out of the 8. So that's 9 3/8 people. There you go. You have your answer.